Hello.
Hey, is this Röckët Stähr?
This is he.
Röckët Stähr, this is Shaggy from 94.9 and 104.5 The Pick. How you doing, my man?
Good, Shaggy. How are you?
You know what? No complaints at all. I just got to start off real quick by saying I've been wanting to talk to you for a little bit now because about a month ago, I'm scrolling around on Instagram and it seems to be flooded with ads for your animated rock opera, Death of a Rock Star. So after seeing a couple of these ads, I knew I had to check out this film. And I'm telling you, man, I'm glad I did because it is an absolute masterpiece.
Oh, thank you so much, Shaggy. Appreciate that.
No problem. So for those listeners who may be unfamiliar with you and your music, why don't you give us a little background of yourself and kind of what led to spending 13 years on this project?
Okay, so this is like a 4-hour interview, right?
Oh, of course. Hey, we got all the time in the world, man.
That's a long therapeutic story.
Well, consider me to be your therapist.
Yeah, I'll cut it to maybe shortly before I made the movie. I had just done a show in New York City at the Mercury Lounge, a big kind of like with a string quartet and a background singers and, a whole band that I paid to do the show. And the show went really well and stuff, but, it cost me like about $1,000 to put on. Mm-hmm. And at that point I kind of thought, if I'm putting this kind of money and effort into my music, I'd rather do something that lasts more than one night. So I figured, I'm going to record like maybe just a bunch of my songs that I've written in various projects over the years and, maybe make a double album or something and do that. And that led to me thinking, well, if I'm going to do that, I might as well turn it into a story. And, long story short, 8 billion years later, I have a movie. That's the extraordinarily short version of it.
Sure, no problem. And obviously you wrote the music for this first and it somehow turned into a rock opera. And then at what point do you realize, man, I got to animate this thing. I got to make this a movie. Yeah,
well, that was kind of, at first I didn't know it was going to be an animated thing. I didn't know what I was going to, I kind of played with the idea of making, doing it with puppets or claymation.
Oh, that'd be cool too.
Yeah, I know. It'd probably even take me longer.
Maybe part 2, huh?
Yeah, there will never be a part 2. I will never do this again in my life. I tell you that. It was the most tedious thing I've ever done. And I wasn't, when I first settled on animation, I was not, I might be insane, but I wasn't insane enough to at first go think, I'm going to do this all on my own. Because I'd never animated anything before in my life. So I tried to find independent animators or independent animation houses that might be interested. And a lot of them I'd send the script to and the songs. They're like, this is a great idea. How many millions of dollars do you have to work with? And I was, and I said $0 millions of dollars to work with. And they're like, well, good luck. And so at some point, what I actually started doing is I started just sort of drawing scenes on my computer because I thought maybe if I could, I kind of was trying to take the George Lucas approach of, he hired Ralph McQuarrie to illustrate certain scenes with Star Wars to show producers, what it would look like. And so I thought maybe I'd do that. And so when I did a couple of those, at one point I was like, maybe if I just made this one little thing move because I was illustrating in an animation program, that will just show them what this does. And when I made that one little thing move, I was like, wow, I animated something. maybe I'll try making this thing move. And before you know it, it's like that thing where you clean a little part of a window because you see something dirty on it, and then you're just like, oh well, now the whole rest of the window looks dirty. So maybe I'll clean this, and then 5 hours later you've cleaned your entire house.
Oh sure.
Yeah, it was kind of like that. I sort of started like that, and eventually I was just like, well, I guess I'm animating, so I might as well just keep going.
Man, I remember when I was in high school, I took a 3D animation class, and a lot of people don't realize how long that process takes. I mean, to animate like a 30-second scene, you're talking about potentially days, if not weeks of work.
Oh, yeah, dude. And mind you, I was doing this on a 2013 Mac, in the 2010s, computers are stronger and faster now, and not knowing what I'm doing, and also doing everything else. I was, coming up with a lot of the ideas on the fly. Like I had written the script, but since I was doing it on my own, very often I'd wake up in the morning, start animating, being like, that idea just doesn't quite work. I have a better idea, and so I'm kind of designing it and coming up with the ideas and experimenting with the animation and teaching myself how to animate all at the same time throughout it. And if you watch in sort of a certain order, like the second song first, and the third and fourth, then back to the first, and then from then on, you can actually see my animation improve. You can see it go from a little bit more janky to a little bit smoother toward the end. I went back and upgraded the early stuff to make it better than it had been, but it still kind of has that feel. And that very first thing that I animated in there is actually still in the movie.
Very cool.
So,
and if you are not familiar listening out there with this rock opera, I would probably describe it as, so it's an animated rock opera, if you didn't get that already, but it's like, imagine The Who's Tommy on steroids in animation. I mean, the amount of influences that you have in the music is just mind-blowing. I mean, I heard a lot of David Bowie influence in there, a lot of Queen, some Meatloaf. Anything else I'm missing?
Oh, I mean, the whole gamut, Zeppelin, Sabbath, the Fleetwood Mac, the Beatles. I'm a huge Beatle head.
My favorite band of all time.
Yeah, mine too. I mean, I'm a classic rock junkie, which is, the best kind of junkie to be.
Darn
I
right.
would say. And, it's funny. I mean, you mentioned, of course, Bowie and T-Rex. I'm
sure.
a big Bolan fan. I can go on with this, really. So many influences. I'm a big Guns N' Roses fan, too.
Well, hey, you are talking on the right station. I'm telling you, we play all this stuff. So,
you mentioned Bowie and the various levels or layers I could talk about the movie. The song Death of a Rock Star itself, which starts the movie, that's actually originally written about his last show as Ziggy Stardust.
Very cool.
And I, took it and used it in the movie, didn't change one lyric, but if you look at it from that perspective, you listen to the song, you can hear what I'm talking about.
Oh, that totally makes sense, yeah. Man, that's awesome. Now, as we were talking about, this film is loaded with classic rock Easter eggs. I mean, anything from the scene where the girl is climbing the Led Zeppelin Houses of the Holy Mountain to, Randy Rhoads and Ozzy in there. How much fun did you have just putting all these Easter eggs in the film? Oh,
a blast. Every time I could find a reason to give a nod to, any of the classic rock greats, I did. Or even just 20th century and U.S. pop culture in general. There's a little Mary Tyler Moore nod in there and some stuff like that. But yeah, that was kind of a blast, and I almost kind of wish there were more. It's like once in a while I watch and be like, I wish I worked something like that in there. I tried to fit as much of that stuff in there because I kind of almost figured like I was working so hard at this. I was almost like, well, I might not ever do anything again in my life. So I better pack everything I can into this one project.
And it wasn't only classic rock references. Like you said, you had some pop culture stuff in there too, but I saw many hints of musical theater. See, musical theater is my first love. Before I discovered classic rock, musical theater was there. And so I noticed things from Singing in the Rain, Wizard of Oz, all sorts of stuff. Do you have a musical theater background?
I don't, but my father was a dancer.
Oh, cool.
And, so I came up on that kind of stuff. Singing in the Rain and West Side Story was a big one. My father danced in the official touring company of that in Japan.
Very cool.
And worked with a lot of people back then. So I grew up on that. He had a dinner theater, and I'd sit there drawing Star Wars pictures at the bar while they were doing versions of 2x2, which I don't know if you've ever heard of. It's a Danny Kaye musical from, I think, the early 70s.
Oh, sure. Old school.
And, and Once Upon a Mattress. And a funny thing happened on the way to the Forum, like really, classic musicals. And I never really thought about that influencing me, but it obviously can't deny that it did. And, I think some of those things, like the Singing in the Rain stuff, that was almost like a nod to my father in a way, put something a little in there of his influence. So,
hey, I love to hear that. Now, I want to move on real quick and talk about your social media presence. So first off, you are one talented dude. I recently watched your performance, your solo piano performance of 60 Summer Heartbreak, and I was absolutely blown away. I was looking at it, I'm like, there's no way he's going to sound like he did in the movie. And you do. I mean, dude, you are a talented guy.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks. I really appreciate that.
And it seems like you put a lot of time and thought into your social media posts. I mean, from, giving people guitar tutorials on how to play your songs to performing to answering questions. How much time do you spend on social media each week?
I'd say about 9,000 hours. No, it's just kind of like, as I'm working throughout the day doing the other stuff, because a lot of my day is, I mail out the Blu-rays and DVDs of the movie, and I'm also trying to take more time to record and work on my next project and stuff. But I almost always have, my Facebook or Instagram open in the background on my computer, or I'll check it on my phone periodically to see if anybody left a message, or I'm not like an influencer. I don't put up a new post every single day or anything like that, but I try to make sure I keep the ball rolling, to give people something little of interest. And luckily that's kind of almost like the fans sort of help out with that, because I get fan art, or when people get the Blu-ray of the movie, they like to take a picture of it and send it to me, or send me the video of them watching it with their friends. And then I share that on my social media too. And that kind of just reinforces the whole thing. And I love that. I mean, getting fan art is one of the more amazing things to me, seeing that somebody actually sat down and took the time to draw a character that I invented in my head and sat around with, not knowing if anybody would give the darn about it for years. And suddenly, and this is something for, you're probably around my age. I'm assuming, or older, classic rock, you tend to think of it as an older person's thing, but most of my fans are young people. Yeah. They're people who are like 18, even as young. I've had parents tell me, oh, my 10-year-old kid loves your movie so much, they went to the record store and were trying to find as many vinyl copies of the records you referenced in the movie. Like, that blew my mind. A lot of 20-year-olds and stuff, people who I just didn't think this music or the movie would speak to, that it does. So it gives me hope for the the future.
You are doing it right, doing the work. In fact, you mentioned a younger audience. When I watched Death of a Rockstar, then I started watching it by myself. And then my kids come in. I have a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old, and they start watching it with me, and they're just glued to the screen. We watched the entire thing. I ended up rewinding it so they could watch it from the beginning, and they absolutely loved it. In fact, the next day, my 4-year-old daughter was like, "Can we watch that Rockstar movie again?" It's like, "Yeah, sure."
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, that's awesome. I don't know if you had to censor some scenes or not, but
yeah, there were a couple things.
It's a rock and roll movie, after all.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing. Their dad's a radio DJ. They've seen and heard some things. They've met some rock stars that had some choice words around them. So, it's not a big deal. It's animated, so a lot of the stuff kind of went over their head.
I think one reason it might sometimes appeal to, because I've heard this about even some of my music before with friends who like their 5-year-old, like when they play some of my music, because it kind of almost sounds colorful. Yeah. Since I add a lot of the layers, and that's, Queen, a lot of kids like Queen. I think the animation, when I had to do it on my own, my original intention was, if I paid somebody else, I wanted it to look like the movie Heavy Metal or the animation in The Wall. And of course, I wasn't capable of that. So I was like, well, what could I take as influence? And of course, then I thought, Yellow Submarine. Got a uniqueness, but a simplicity that I thought I could kind of use for influence to draw from. And of course, kids love Yellow Submarine. So I think that kind of might translate in that way to some kids.
And that totally makes sense. When my kids were younger, that was one of the first movies I ever showed them, was Yellow Submarine. And that was the exact thought that went in my head when I first saw the movie. I was like, oh, it looks like Yellow Submarine.
Yeah. And, of course, being a big Beatle fan, that's an amazing compliment. Well, not that they animated it themselves or anything.
Oh, sure. well, the Beatles weren't even, actually in the movie until the very end, if you remember. So
yeah, the whole end scene. I see newer and bluer meanies in the audience right now.
Exactly. Right on, man. Well, I also want to bring up, you have a new album out. Last year, your first self-titled album. So I went and checked it out. It's awesome. Just as good as Death of a Rockstar, if you ask me. I mean, just that same sound that I have come to find from your music, I think really resonates in that new album as well.
Oh, thanks. And I'm glad to hear that, because when I was doing it, that I actually did a version of that during the pandemic. That's why I started to kind of keep myself busy. And I shelved the first version because I did it much more just sort of banging on a djembe in my living room, and I just felt like the quality of it wasn't up to snuff. So I re-recorded it, added a couple of different songs, took out some others, and I was kind of wondering if it would resonate, because there's no actual orchestrations in it, which are a heavy part of the movie. It's all live orchestrations, and there's a lot of them in it. So I was kind of worried, like, will respond to this as well without the orchestral bent to it. But they have. It's, they don't discover it as quickly because, of course, I promote the movie so much more. But once they do, I've gotten responses like yours, and that definitely makes me happy for the future of my music.
So the movie is kind of the gateway to your other material.
Exactly, and it always will be basically the thing that I promote and try to get out there for as many years as I can to try to reach as many people I can, since I'm doing it all on a small indie level, and that's the gateway. That then whatever else I do, they'll discover through that, basically.
Well, whatever you're doing, keep doing it because it's working. In fact, people are starting to take some recognition because you have a documentary that you're currently filming. Tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, they're standing here staring at me with cameras facing us right now. It's much like with you, with finding me through the ads that I run on Meta. Garrick, the director, he's here with his lovely wife Mac, and he found it, bought the movie, fell in love with it, and contacted me asking if he could make a documentary about me. And I responded about 6 months later because I didn't see it had gone to a folder on Instagram called Hidden until I went through it, and I was like, oh, holy crap, this exists. So luckily he responded and wasn't insulted by it. And now he drove all the way here from Pittsburgh, and I'm in Brooklyn, New York, and that blows my mind. And they're great and doing a very professional job, but it's still, I'm trying to curb my language. It's still very weird. I've never, it's like when people want to come and shoot cameras at me while I'm sitting around doing my nonsense here. Like, what the hell?
I totally get it. Like you're in a reality show.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. I mean, yeah, I guess it's a little different because, they pepper me with questions all day long and then follow me to the post office. And, I tried to ditch them by running around the block, but they caught up with me anyway.
Well, guys, I promise I can shower on my own, okay?
Yeah, I know. It's a little creepy when they try to come into the bathroom with me, but that's all right, You
got to do what you got to do. Right on, man.
Yeah, so a lot of things have come through that stuff, and a lot of people will ask me, oh, you should reach out to Adult Swim to try to put it on there, or you should reach out to this person. I'm like, that would take a lot of effort for probably a lot less return. Mm-hmm. So I kind of let these things have been coming to me through that, like with you, with some people wanting to run it in theaters here and there, and with this. So, yeah, it's been great.
Before I let you go, why don't you shout out your social medias? Where can people find you? Where can people purchase the movie, purchase your music, all that stuff?
Right. So you can find me on Instagram, Instagram.com/Röckët_Stähr. And Star is spelled Stahr. And, I'm there quite a bit. And on the old Facebooky, Facebook.com/Röckët Stähr, all one word. And again, Star is Stahr. And if you're lucky enough for one of my ads to come across your feed, there's a special deal within those ads where I sign the DVD or Blu-ray. And if you don't have a DVD or Blu-ray player, it comes with a free digital download of the movie as well. If not, or some people just prefer to go to my web store, which is deathofarockstore.com.
Which is a great name.
And, some people, some people just prefer to do it that way. And I'm also selling on there and also through the ads, the pre-sale of the double vinyl soundtrack for the first time, the first run of that. And that's going really well. That's going to be a very special product because it's going to come with a booklet that has basically me telling the whole, as much of the story as I can in about 8 pages of me making the movie from the beginning to the end of, how I got there. And also includes all the lyrics and includes a complete cultural reference guide to the movie, a minute-by-minute cultural reference guide. So you can watch it that way if, time stamped and say, oh, this is what he put in this little Easter egg here and that. And it comes with a poster, and it comes with 2 signed prints of drawings I did of 2 of the characters and 2 stickers.
We love to hear that, man. No doubt about it. And I do have to give you a shout out here real quick. If you do follow Röckët Stähr on social media, you leave a comment. Any post I've ever seen from you, you respond to almost all the comments, which is very unheard of nowadays. So shout out to you. That's awesome, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I try to make sure I don't miss anything. And if I do, I apologize.
I mean, you'll even go so far as to respond to people on Reddit posts.
Oh, yeah. I'll fight with them on that because, Reddit can be a cesspool of comments. And
I'm
the kind of person who I will defend, what I do to the end. It's like nobody has to like it if they don't want, but if they're going to talk crap about it or about, because it looks very indie and stuff like that, or misconstrue what certain messages I'm trying to get across, and then I'll come at people. Other than that, I try to be very nice and generous to anyone, and people who are kind to me on there, I'm as kind as I can be right back to them.
No doubt about it. Awesome. Röckët Stähr, thank you so much. Before I let you go, 2 quick questions. 1, I have been working on a rock opera for probably 15 years. I've written maybe like 1 or 2 songs from it. I just haven't spent any time. What advice do you have someone who's working on a rock opera and wants to just pull the trigger and get it done?
Run. Don't do it. No.
Get out of there now.
You don't know what you're getting into, man. No. Just be persistent. It's like mine. The whole thing beginning to end took about 13 years, but like, there's no set time frame it has to happen. And if you truly believe in it, if you have a conviction that this is really something that has to be out there, a story that needs to be told, then just keep pushing to do it, and listen to yourself. Maybe you've done that and you're like, maybe this isn't an I do it to you. I feel like pursuing it, and only you can know that, So, but if you really do believe in it, then that's really the only advice that I can give, is that you've got to just keep your head down and, damn the torpedoes, as they say, until you get to that end. And once you do, you'll be amazed at yourself that you're like, holy crap, how did I do that?
Well, hey, man, great advice. I appreciate it. And last thing for you, every day on my show, I have a segment called Shaggy's Picks, where I get to throw on whatever song I want. And today, I'm handing it over to you. It is Röckët Stähr's Picks. So if you want to play something off Death of a Rockstar or your self-titled album, whatever you want to get out there into the universe for the listeners today, you tell me what it is, I'll play it.
Oh, that's very cool, especially because the documentarians were asking me, are they going to play any of the music? And I was like, I don't know.
Of course we are.
Nice. I will go with 60 Summer Heartbreak, because that seems to be everybody's favorite, and that's sort of the big single that I use in the advertising. And I'll tell you really just quickly, the 60s in it is, even though the movie takes place in the 2160s, which was all, purposeful, it starts in 2164, like the year the Beatles came to America, but it's actually in reference to the fact that I was basing it on 60s girl groups. It's got the run as Be My Baby Be, and it's very influenced by Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow by the Shirelles, and in fact, the main female character's name, even though it's a play on the words runaway, I named her Ronnie Way as a nod to Ronnie Spector of the Ronettes. So there you go. So that's 60 Summer Heartbreak in a nutshell.
Man, I love it. And this is the song. I have a grudge to pick with you, because this song has been stuck in my head for a good 2.5 weeks. So thank you for that.
I recorded it on adhesive tape, so it gets stuck in people's heads.
I love it. Röckët Stähr, thank you so much for joining me today. Look forward to the documentary and appreciate everything that you have done to keep rock and roll live and well in 2025.
My pleasure, Shaggy, and thank you so much for having me on, and thank you a ton for the kind words and support. It means a tremendous deal to me. It really does, with this kind of support.
Hey, no problem. Happy to do it. And once again, Röckët Stähr's Death of a Rockstar. Go and check that out. I will post links on our social medias over at Pick Idaho on Facebook and Instagram, so you can check it out there and get yourself a copy of the movie. Röckët Stähr, you are the man. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you too, Shaggy. Have a great day.